1470 WFNT. Dan Foley, Sherman Mays here with you. Special guests in studio. We are Facebook Living this as well, and I think it's rolling. I do believe so. Dr. Edwards, it's so great to see you again. Thanks so much for coming in. LeAnn Walters, I don't think we've ever had you in studio before.
No, you haven't.
So I'm going to have somebody up at the mic at each time, and we'll start out. Dr. Edwards, I want to talk with you. This has been quite an ordeal. And LeAnn, I want to get the whole story with you, too. That this is where it all started. And so I'm going to come to you. But I'm going to talk first just because the thing that got this started, you've got this paper coming out. Is it still going to go out Friday, Dr. Edwards?
Probably early next week.
Early next week. And that's going to be in, and it's perfect for this. I don't know if there was, I'd never heard of the Journal of Citizen Science. Citizen Science is the journal. It's absolutely perfect for what we did here in Flint, what you guys did here in Flint. Did it take long to get this paper accepted? I mean, when you reached out to these guys, what did they say?
Well, the typical process is you put it in, it gets reviewed, and it takes a long time. It goes back and forth. So altogether, it's taken 14 months because, as you can see, it's a long history. It's
I look at it as kind of the definitive account of what happened here, and you mentioned this. The process gets started with the switch to the Flint River, to the water from Flint River. And people start having problems with the water right away. The way it looks, the way it smells. General Motors stops using the water because it's wreaking havoc on their parts. So it's not good fit for machining parts, but it's okay for people in Flint to drink. Right. It's a problem. So, but the folks who are overseeing this, who are tasked with overseeing this, MDEQ, EPA, are saying, nope, everything's everything, thumbs up, all systems go. And LeAnn, I'm gonna drag you in right now. I want to get this part of it right off the bat, and I'll have you scooch right in. You know there's something wrong, right? Because you're having problems. What is it that started? Your kids had really high levels of lead in their blood, correct?
When they were tested, they had they had levels, not high though, because we'd quit drinking it for over a month.
Okay.
So they were still over the action level though, the health level for it.
So what was the sign? I mean, what was it? I mean, was it the taste and the quality and that sort of stuff? You knew right away there were problems with the water from that, or did you notice something with the kids?
Well, it started in the summer of 14, but we didn't realize it was the water. Yeah. Because we had a whole house filter. Yeah. And so
we're set. We're okay.
Yeah. We started from swimming in our pool that we had, which was a saltwater pool.
Okay.
We kept getting rashes, really bad rashes.
Okay.
And they kept telling us it was scabies. And when other people were coming over, they were having the same issues that didn't live in Flint.
Okay.
And then as we went into the fall, we started noticing hair loss. And my then 14-year-old got really, really sick. And they were testing him for everything under the sun. His kidneys were enlarged. They didn't know what was going on. At one point, they thought he had cancer.
Yeah. Which has got to be horrifying. You're very frightened at this point.
Oh yes. And from that, it wasn't until he went out of town and I get this phone call, and it's from my ex, and he's like, okay, he's here, he's doing great. You're telling me he can't climb upstairs, he's missed a month of school, he's been super sick. What's going on? And at that point, we're like, what? Yeah. And then 2 days later, we had our first bout of brown water. Okay. It was right after Christmas of 14. Yeah. And we're like, okay, so we contacted the city, and we were told they were winterizing the system. We'd never experienced anything like that. Yeah. And so, right after the first of the year, we got the notice for the TTHMs. Yes. That we were in violation. Yep. And I have a child with a compromised immune system. Mm-hmm. So, from there, we were going into meetings to see what's going on. Right. And, I mean, we'd had the hair loss, we'd had the rashes, and we're like, okay, what's going on here? We're being told that it was specific to our house. Yeah. Nobody else was having bouts of brown water. Right. Nobody else was having any of these
Who was telling you that?
Going to city council meetings, Mayor Walling, Howard Croft.
So you're reaching out to all the people that you should reach out to, kind of the chain of command sort of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it wasn't until we went to the one meeting at the Dome, because at this point, local media wasn't putting anything out there that there was any kind of issues with the water. Everything was fine besides the TTHMs.
I mean, that's a red flag in itself. And,
Mm-hmm.
and there was the advisory, and people were talking about it. And I know a lot of people started. And you were in early. There were other people that you were working with, and started sharing the information. Everybody's like, well, it's not just me. It's not localized to my house.
Mm-hmm.
Other people are having these problems.
Right, but the city took it to a point where they were going into block meetings
Yeah.
and telling people that it was specific to my home,
Okay.
saying it was my internal pipes.
Yeah.
When we had bought our house, it had been completely gutted.
Okay.
So we had installed
Copper,
brand new plastic. No, we
Okay.
have PVC piping.
PVC. Okay.
So it wasn't coming from inside the house.
All right.
But when we went to that dome meeting, that was our first clue that, whoa, wait a second, there is something bigger here.
Yeah.
Because we walk into this meeting and there's all these people
Yeah.
holding up bags of hair, showing off their rashes, holding up discolored water like
Yeah.
we're having.
Right.
And by January of 15, it was starting to become a weekly. It was
Yeah.
getting the amount of time in between brown water
Yeah.
was getting smaller and smaller
Yeah.
from our kitchen tap and our bathroom tap.
Right.
So it was all those things combined
Yeah.
that were like, okay, what is this?
So what led to the so your son's having problems. He's having problems at home. He's with his dad for a while. Dad says there's nothing wrong with him here.
Mm-hmm.
And when does it click? There's got to be something. It could be the water. There's something about this environment here.
A month later.
Okay.
So that happened like right after Christmas
Mm-hmm.
of 14. And the dome meeting was at the January 21st of 15.
All right. So do you take him to the doctor then? I mean, where do you go?
Yes, we went to the doctor.
Okay.
And in that period of time, my child with the compromised immune system, both of my twins were having issues when they would bathe.
Yeah.
But with the one with the compromised immune system, his skin was like really bad.
Yeah.
To the point like you would give him a bath, you'd get him out, you'd go to lotion him up, his skin would be red and blotchy and scaly,
Right.
and he would scream and
Yeah.
be hysterical about how bad his skin burned.
Yeah.
And so I actually took a video to show the pediatrician
Yeah.
what would happen from a 10-minute bath.
Yeah.
And you can see a water line
Yeah.
and his skin completely inflamed from the waist down
Yeah.
from soaking in the water.
Is that from the TTHMs, the byproduct?
I think it was because of what was going on with the water as a
Yeah.
whole,
Yeah.
with them not treating it properly.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't bathing
gross.
my kids in brown water. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it wasn't brown when they were getting the
Because you
bath.
got a filter on the system.
Right.
Yeah, you got a whole
But it
home
was still
filter.
getting through the filter.
Yeah.
And the filter at this point, we were going, it was every 6 months we were changing it. It was getting to the point where it was every 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Because it was getting so bogged down.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
and Dr. Edwards tested those filters. I mean,
Yeah.
he got to see firsthand.
Okay. So let me and I just want to so moving forward then. So when do you get in touch with Miguel del Toro? How does that happen?
I was actually talking with another member of EPA about the TTHM stuff when I had given, my doctor had written a note about my children and the problems they were having with water.
Mm-hmm.
And when I handed that over to the city, I got moved to the top of the list to start getting my house tested.
Okay.
And so when they came in, that's when they decided to do the first lead test.
Okay.
And the first lead test came back.
And this was the city. So the city's doing the testing. They do the test. What do you come back at? What's your level?
First level was 104 parts per billion.
And 15 is the action level, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So 104. So it's obviously high.
Mhm.
You've got a problem. And from there, does it go to Del Toro? Did you get the kids tested then at that point for lead, or no?
No, they were, the pediatrician's office actually was refusing me. The pediatrician had told me that they weren't going to do anything in regards to water with my kids because I was just trying to cause problems. And so when I got in the notice from the water department about how high the lead was in my water, I went to the pediatrician's office, and they told me that until they heard from the city, they would not test my children.
So the hospital says we
Pediatrician.
The pediatrician.
Mm-hmm.
The pediatrician says
Mm-hmm.
they aren't going to test your kids.
Yes.
Until they hear from the city.
Yes. And
the
so
pediatrician that's you're the customer, right?
Yes.
That's your doctor, not the city's.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Well, I told them, I said, one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to test my children, or you're going to give me a letter telling me why you have to hear from the city of Flint
Yeah.
to test my children.
Good for you.
And so, luckily, Mike Glasgow was involved at that point, the
Okay.
lab supervisor.
Yep.
He had actually contacted my doctor's office.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat in the pediatrician's office. It was almost 2 hours waiting for them to make a decision.
Yeah.
And he actually emailed my doctor and CC'd me into it.
Yeah.
And that's when, 5 minutes later, they're like, all right, we need to get your kids tested.
But this is still a month later. You've already switched away from that. You're drinking bottled water there.
Yes.
Okay. All right. What did they test at?
I don't know their actual levels.
Okay.
They just told me my kids were fine.
They told your kids are fine. Okay.
They would not give me a number. They would not give me anything.
Uh-huh.
I'd wind up taking, because of Gavin, the one with the compromised immune system, I took him outside of the city at that point to a dermatologist. She actually did a test, and at that point, he was a 5.
Okay.
So
And what's the action level there that's the micro whatever per deciliter? What is it? What's the measure? Micrograms per deciliter. All right. So 5, and 5 is that high?
well, it's where you need to find out where the exposure's coming from.
Yeah.
You need to figure out where the
So you got to start figuring that
what's
part
going
out.
on. No level of lead is safe.
Right. Exactly.
But I mean, you're talking. This was 5.5 weeks since we quit drinking it.
Yeah. Okay.
And my son was still at a 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you get in touch with Del Toro. He brings in Dr. Edwards, and Dr. Edwards, Mark Edwards, I want to talk with you a little bit, but have that microphone switch over there to you. One of the things that that I love about the paper is that you guys, when you go in to do this testing, you understand. So LeAnn's already run into some roadblocks, right? And those are big question marks. Why on earth would your pediatrician not test for lead? That's very concerning. MDEQ, EPA, nope, all systems go, everything is fine. So in the paper you point out, we understand that we've got to do this, we've got to have all our ducks in a row, this data has to be impeccable because we've got people who are going to deny it, and they did. You start your testing, and you're starting to see these results, and they're still denying that there's anything going on here, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So, so the authorities, as long as they've got this unified front, that's a powerful block to overcome. And so you have to have the rigor of science. You've got to have this testing nailed down, buttoned up, because if you don't, you understand from the experience that LeAnn and others had,
And other water crises in the past.
they're gonna resist this, and they're gonna say, oh no, there's no problem. Once that log jam breaks and these people are completely discredited, you take the water. I saw a video just recently of celebrities. Mark Ruffalo's in town with Van Jones, and Congressman Tom Steyer's there, and she says that you came to her in August and said, you know, we're getting these elevated levels of lead. You might want to check the blood lead levels. And she gets the study approved in 2 days, you know, and tests that. The reason she did is you guys alerting her to this problem. They go back and they look at the data, and she shows that there's elevated. So there's one thing to have lead in the water. What does that do to people? It looks like it's now increasing blood lead levels in kids in Flint. And they get that from Hurley, from that study that they did. And then within days,
yeah.
it all crumbles.
It all changed. They were planning to switch back to the Flint to Detroit, which they said would never happen, and they started distributing filters and issuing public health advisories.
So now you've got a situation where, and we're going to take a break, and we'll come back and we'll set this up. Now you've got a situation where the authorities are completely discredited, and you get a Wild West situation. It turns upside down. You can't turn to the people that you should be able to turn to, because when you turn to them in the first place, they stonewalled. They said, nope, everything's fine. And my sense is from this, and just kind of looking at it overall, is that, you know, we've got this, we're making this change. They were extorted a little bit, held up by Detroit Water. They wouldn't extend. They tried to play hardball to keep them on for a 30-year deal. So they said, you know what, we'll just take our own water. They figured it's a short-term thing. We're just going to plow through and get there. That's kind of the approach that I think that they took. I think that's what was in their head. Yeah. You know, we're not going to worry about, you know, this little, you know, blip in the road on the path to, you know, clean, sustainable water for the next 100 years or whatever it is. So, but the problem is, once these authorities crumble completely crumble.
Created a vacuum of trust. There's no trust left.
And that's what this is all about. I mean, and you detail that. We're going to talk some more about it when we come back. Dan Foley, Sherman Mays. We're going to try to get him not to talk so much.
No problem.
Sure.
That's what I do best.
But we've got Dr. Edwards with us. We've got LeAnn Walters. We're sure glad that you're here. We're gonna take a break. We'll come back. Flint's News Talk, 1470 WFNT. Back right after this.